Good morning. Alrighty. Pardon me if I cough a little bit. I'm a little under the weather. Bear with me. When Mr. Crow came to me at the end of last year to ask me to do this, I laughed really hard and told him that as flattered as I was that my name had been thrown into the ring, public speaking is something that I am absolutely terrified of. The thought of talking about myself in front of the entire school and all of my colleagues made my palms immediately sweaty, which I also told him. He then laughed harder than I had and told me that it was perfect because the theme of the year was being fearless. And here was my very own chance to show everyone the importance of facing what makes us want to run and hide. Being a teacher and a person who believes in practicing what I preach, I realized that in order to feel like I am authentically supporting my students in their journeys to push and challenge themselves, I too must do the thing that makes me scared. Inevitably, I turned to some of my previous students for their insight on fear to get me started. Jackson Walker says that fear is when Mr. Matroni starts making fun of the kid next to you for answering a question wrong on a lab. Gets better. He also says, but then you look down and realize your answer is even more wrong. Sorry, Jackson. Sean Lau remembered a quote from his childhood. Fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Even though a big part of me wants to run and hide in a corner right now instead of speaking in front of all of you, I'm going to do my best to rise because that's what I asked of my students like Jackson and Sean, so here goes nothing. I want to begin by addressing my seniors because right now, many of you are experiencing nerves and fear of something I have always cowered in the face of, the unknown. I'm a complete worrier, and when I was a senior in high school, the thought of applying to college and hoping that I ended up in the right place was absolutely terrifying. I had just transferred to a new school as a junior, a small school in Watsonville called St. Francis, and I had a family and friends that I loved fiercely. I had always been a hardworking student, a determined softball player, a proud older sister to my brother Jacob, a grateful daughter to my parents, and I simply didn't know how to face the unknowns that the decisions about college would bring. Up until that point, I had done a pretty good job of controlling what I could in life, until I had an accident in November of my senior year that would change my entire trajectory. While I don't want the focus of my story to be the incident that altered my course, it is important to mention because nothing was the same after that. I had a number of medical issues following my accident, along with the anxiety and fear that all of my careful planning and determination over the years was for nothing. I missed months of school, was behind in all of my classes, and couldn't step out onto the field to play softball again, despite the fact that scouts had contacted my parents a number of times. Everything changed, and nothing was the way that it was supposed to be. As I worked to regain my health, I had many people behind me reminding me that even when things don't turn out the way you thought they would, it wouldn't mean the outcome would be wrong or less than what you anticipated. I remember Mr. Matthews and Mr. Marheineke reminding me of this again and again as I tried to make up work and submit college apps, unsure of what this detour would mean for the rest of my journey. Fast forward to the end of senior year. While I didn't leave high school with the 4.0 GPA and offer to play softball somewhere like I had planned, I was ready to be on to the next phase of my life. I committed to Cal Poly and SLO, and for the first month or two, it was great. I made new friends, liked my classes, and was close enough to home that I could still drive to Aptos to make it to my brother's soccer games on the weekends. This pattern, class, friends, home, repeat, worked until the fall, and that's when all of the unknowns started creeping in again. But this time, it was for the things I felt like I had lost. While I still had mixed feelings about this new path that I was on, I tried to remind myself that I was incredibly lucky and that I was privileged enough to even go to college and that my attitude needed to reflect that no matter how I was truly feeling. What ifs plagued me day and night, wondering where I would be and what I would be doing if I had been able to follow through with my original plan and hadn't been thrown off course. Ultimately, I became really good at pretending that things were fine when they weren't, which led me to feeling so much worse than I did before, which I didn't quite think was possible. I started alienating myself from the friends I had made. I started missing a soccer game of Jacob's here and there because it was too hard to tear myself away from him when it was time to drive back to SLO, and eventually parts of me seemed to be slipping away. A few more months went on this way until my parents caught on and did everything they could to help me get back on my feet. In the late spring, we decided as a family that I needed to move back home. In every sense of the word, I felt like I had failed. I failed my parents, my friends, my brother, my teachers. In today's gospel passage, Simon feels like a failure also, unable to catch the fish necessary to take care of his people. When Jesus asks him to cast his net to the other side, I can only imagine the worry creeping in, knowing that he may have to face even more disappointment should this, too, fail. When I came home from SLO, one of the first things I did was return to my high school, St. Francis in Watsonville, to seek guidance from the same teachers that helped me get through my senior year. Mr. Matthews, true to form, asked if I would like to come sit in on a few of his English classes, just for fun, to see if I could get inspiration there. Mr. Marheineke was kind enough to invite me to go on Kairos, but asked that I help lead it and give one of the talks. This scared me almost as much as Mr. Crow asking me to speak to all of you today. What happened next was quite unexpected. I said yes. I knew that what I had been doing clearly wasn't working, and since going to Mr. Matthews' class didn't interfere with my class schedule at Cabrillo, and Mr. Marheineke gave me months in advance to write the Kairos talk I would deliver in December, I knew I needed to give myself a chance. I cast my net to the other side. I'm truly thankful for all of the people that played such a huge role in getting me to exactly where I needed to be. While my journey had a number of twists and turns that I was not prepared for, what I now realize is that things really do happen for a reason. Sitting in Mr. Matthews' AP Lit class gave me the push I needed to pursue teaching, something I had considered but didn't think was right for me. Mr. Marheineke gave me the confidence I needed by putting me in a room full of young people and letting me share my story, which I know now was more for me than it was for them. My parents encouraging me to come home and really work through my struggles was as much a leap of faith for the family as it was for me, and without feeling supported in my quote-unquote failure, none of the rest would have ever happened. Of course, we know that when Simon listened to Jesus and cast the net to the other side of the boat, not only did they catch fish, but they caught so many that the nets were actually tearing. This image of simply putting your fears and worries aside and having faith to try just one more time, one more way, is incredibly powerful and moving. It teaches us that we cannot simply give up when things don't work out the way that we thought they would. I was lucky enough to have so many wonderful people standing behind me at this low point of my life that they encouraged me to do the same, cast my net to the other side. After everything was said and done, I still got my degree and even went on to get my master's, something I didn't think I would ever have the courage to do. I, like Simon, ended up finding the path I was supposed to be on all along, and I wouldn't be here at Mitty doing what I love with people and students that inspire me every day if those initial plans would have worked out. I've been able to talk to my own students about facing their fears and having faith that things will be the way they are meant to be, even if it looks different than what they pictured. To Max Lamb, fear is what stops us from achieving our fullest potential. And to Justin McAfee, he felt an insane amount of fear when performing as Rod Sterling in last year's Monarch Madness dance. But can you honestly imagine what it would have been like without him? I sure can't. According to Lizzie Mason, courage is feeling that fear and doing it anyway. Well, standing here before you, about to finally cross the finish line on something that has been causing me fear since May of last year, I hope you choose to do the things that challenge your nerves and make you scared. They are often the things that hold the most meaning. Don't let the image you have in mind get in the way of the wonderful things that may come across your path. Cast your net to the other side. Thank you.